I do want to introduce our guest, Nancy Rourke. Then we'll have some artists whose work is actually on display in the small gallery in the back come up and explain their artwork. We'll have a light reception. We'll have an artist's activity if you guys are feeling brave and want to participate. And without further ado, this is Nancy Rourke. This is her sign name. It incorporates the hand shape N and the number 3. Can anybody guess why? Yes, her trademark of red, yellow, and blue, primary colors. If other artists use those primary colors, sometimes other people assume that that's a Nancy Rourke piece, but which is not always the case. It's just really her trademark. All right, let's get going with the presentation. Thank you all for being here.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to see everyone here. It's truly wonderful. This is the first time ever we have had a DeVia Challenge exhibit, and we have it here. It's so thrilling to see all of the art and all the artists here today. So today I want to primarily talk about how the DeVia Challenge started, where it came from, and how it's been going. I believe that it is on the DeVia YouTube channel. In any case, this link will lead you to a video that you're able to see. And this is where I have a lot of detailed explanations about where DeVia started and how it's changed over time and what it looks like today. Karen Christie was the videographer for this film. I believe she's here in the room, right over here. Well, I'll go ahead and start with this information here, then jump back in time a bit, and then forward again, just to help you understand what is happening as time has gone on. So this is from my website, from my personal business website. So in the year 2012, well, I'll get into that just a bit more. In 2012, I had this 30-day challenge during the month of June. Here are all of the works I made during that time period. The first day, second day, all the way down to the 30th day are all shown here. Starting at the bottom, we have number 1, and number 30 is in the upper left, so they go from bottom to top. Over here is a 31-day challenge that I undertook. I wanted to try to really encourage myself and challenge myself to do a work per day in the month of March. So we have starting from number 1 in the lower right up to the 31st in the upper left. Now that was in 2012, but I actually began this endeavor 1 year before that. So including this year, this is the 8th year that I've been working in this vein. Now this was the first year, but there wasn't a specific theme or specific motif that was specified for each day. Nothing was documented. It was something that I just did on the fly. Every day I created a piece of work, but it wasn't quite structured the way it is now. So looking at these pieces now, I know I made them during that particular month, but I couldn't tell you which day was done at which time. So this was in 2011, the very first year I did this kind of challenge. So you might be wondering where I came up with this idea to have a daily artistic challenge. Here is my source of inspiration. This artist's name is Matt Ciso. He works in Washington, D.C. When he was a child, he lost his arm around the age of 9. He was enjoying time outside, playing with friends, and at the same time, there was a small plane that was landing. Now, it wasn't landing anywhere close to them, but he got into the vicinity and his arm was injured by the propeller. And as you can imagine, that was an incredibly traumatic experience. It took a lot of time and effort for him to work through that. In the process, he became an artist. So he started a challenge that he undertook for 10 years. Every year during the month of July, for 31 days, he created an original artwork. His canvases are 30 by 40 inches, which you can just imagine is quite large. So I have personally met him. We've been in touch for about 5 years. He's come to visit my hometown, just about 1 hour north of Denver. I do tend to frequent Denver quite often because I have an art gallery agency. Access gallery there where I'm often showing my work. And he, Matt, is good friends with the director of the gallery. So whenever he comes, I head down to Denver and we catch up. I watch him paint. So I'm very familiar with him, and he's been my inspiration for this DeVia challenge. Now, Matt's challenge is inspired by the front page of the Washington Post. Every morning, he opens up that front page and peruses the various headlines and stories. He chooses one and uses that as the inspiration for his painting. This one, there was an article about a birthday party being held for a panda, and he created this work on the left called Happy Lucky Panda Party. It's kind of an interesting, amusing piece. Again, we can see that his canvas here is 30 by 40 inches. So this panda was becoming 2 years old. So that's where Matt is coming from. Some days he'll pick something light like this, and the next day he might be covering a war or some sort of other negative thing that's happening in the world. So it's interesting to see how he does this. It's really fun to see what he comes up with every day. He
shared this with me.
He's shared this concept with me, and he really brought this idea of a challenge and challenging oneself as an artist to my mind. So that's how things got started for me in 2011. And I really wanted to take this idea and focus all of its energy onto the deaf community.
My platform is Facebook.
I typically use Facebook as a venue of exhibiting my work. I think about every morning or evening what I want to focus on. I look at social media, I look through Facebook, scroll through the newsfeed, and find something that I think is going to really work well on my art, with my art. So I get an idea and I run with it. I pull out my paints and go for it. I do have a deadline that I set for myself. I need to finish every work every day by midnight. It's really tough. I do not give myself any slack. If I'm not done by midnight, then time's up. I'm going to have to start that painting all over again. So it's something that's not easy, but it is a challenge that I pose to myself. I tried to choose a month to do this without any travel or work or any other commitments that would be taking my time or energy away from the challenge. Now that's the ideal, but that is not something that always happens. There are often people who want to invite me to come during that month, or work or travel plans that come up. So things aren't always the way that I plan. I know sometimes I can't start works because I have to go and do other things, and that's always on my mind. I want to just get home and finally start that work that I've got to finish by midnight. It's not an easy life, I have to say. It's a challenge in more ways than one. So in 2014, on the DeVia Central Facebook group was the first challenge. So this page, DeVia Central Facebook, was something that was set up in 2012. I did my work, I posted it in this venue, and there were a lot of artists who were seeing what I was doing and got a little bit curious. They thought, maybe I could do this too. They got in contact with me and asked if they could join with the same challenge that I was posing to myself, and I said, absolutely, the more the merrier. Now, I did let them know that there were rules involved with this challenge, and I said, you know, this is something you're gonna have to follow if you want to really join me, and they were completely okay with that. I did realize, though, that, or rather, some of the artists realized that it was not as easy as they thought it would be. Some people would get their first work done on day 1 and then not do another one until day 7. Some people tried and made it through the first week, bravo for them, but after that point, they got a little overwhelmed with the challenge. There were a couple artists who asked about a theme. Why not have a theme for each day that you could post and try to get a lot of people involved? This would be a great way to encourage other artists to join us. And I thought that that was an interesting idea. So the idea of a kitchen theme was brought up, and that's one of the first ones that we used. We have some examples here on the left. Now before that, there were no motifs, nothing specific that were required. And with this one, there was the idea of a kitchen, but there was no specific meaning attributed to that. People could take it wherever they wanted. So at this point, we had about 10 or 12 of us working together. We can see there's some really high quality work here. I was quite impressed to see it. So this is 2015. This is when I started the February challenge. Now, February is the shortest month, only 28 days. It's in the winter. People tend to hibernate in the winter, have a lot of time in home to make the art. So I thought this would be a good month for us to pose our challenge. I also decided to add more structured motifs to the challenge. A lot of them have to do with the concept of affirmation, and there are also those that are more on the resistance end of DeVia. So I have a jar that I have these different motifs written on pieces of paper, crumpled up, put them in the jar, and I chose them out of there. Decided that we should start with resistance. The last day would be an affirmation motif. So with that in mind, I chose each motif out of the jar and wrote them down randomly for each day of the month. So after having a motif for each day, I decided to give a little bit of description of what those motifs could mean or where they could go. So there's also the concept of artivism. It's the idea of activism through art. So you see that up there, it says theme artivism. Now there were a lot of people who were really invigorated by this idea. But there are more people who really like to see what people come up with. So here's a calendar of the various motifs for the month of February. And very nice, Patty did this for us. Thank you very much. Stevie Naird was the one who made this lower image here on the left, and these are both posted into the DeVia Central Facebook group. So that year, at the end of the month, on February 28th, we had a total of 675 posts following this challenge. There were 55 artists who joined. And we have 5 of those from other countries outside of the United States. Very impressive. Now, not everyone was able to do a work every day. That's true. There were a few who were able to do that, but most started, gave up for a while, then came back and did it on and off.
All right, this was the year 2016. This was the first time that I had made a calendar for all of the motifs. I added different labels to show whether it would be resistance or affirmation, and you can see that here with the A and the R. And it was up to the artist to choose their own theme. And we had 810 posts on the DeVia Central Facebook page, which was incredible. I would say about 60 participants of artists who painted and tried to keep up with this challenge. This year, I added a few more expansions on what I was looking for each of the motifs. And actually, I made this piece up here with all of the motifs that we were going to incorporate in the month of February. I tried to contact the Daily Moth for an older video that they had from February 10th, 2016, but unfortunately I didn't hear back. I didn't get a response. I was hoping to show you guys the video that the producer made about the DeVia challenge, but no luck, unfortunately. But it was there, and that was a surprise to me. To be featured on that show was touching. And so, 28 days in February 2017, I added links, I added more expansion on each motif, what specifically I'm looking for, and what each motif means. And you'll notice that the calendar is color-coded, blue meaning resistance, yellow meaning affirmation, and pink is in between, an option. This is a really important year. You can see the first week is all blue, the second week is all yellow, the third week all pink. Now that pink means you could choose again, either affirmation or resistance. You had your choice as an artist to run with what you pleased. The theme was ASL. This is the next slide. Yep, thank you, Patty. 2018, this year, I added pictures to my descriptions of the different motifs. I think that is really the best so far. It's very clear. It helps people understand exactly what I'm looking for. Last year, some of the artists mentioned that even with my written description, they weren't exactly sure what I meant, and so these art examples really make it extra clear. The first day 25 rather is stage. And under this motif, I have different pieces where people incorporated that motif. Day 26 is ILY, I love you sign. And you can see examples that artists created. And there's both affirmation and resistance. I included affirmation and resistance for that because sometimes people feel like the ILY symbol and that sign is just overused, cultural appropriation even, if you will. Now, day 27, I added the rainbow as the motif, and that's an important motif. Again, this one had affirmation and resistance. Resistance because many people in that community experience bullying. It could be in the deaf community, it could be related to community accountability. It's really up to the artist to decide how they want to incorporate the rainbow motif into their art. Now, all of these different motifs we have displayed in the exhibit behind us. Last year was the 200th anniversary, so we had a piece related to that, several related to ASL. A couple of them used the kitchen theme.
There was one without a motif.
There was one without a motif 1 year.
Mm-hmm. And then the next year there was a specific motif to use.
And then the next year there was a specific motif to use within that kitchen theme. The Vedet's Day in August, the Inspirational Challenge. For that, I'm trying to remember. We picked, I believe, 7, was it? Yes, 7 different artists that we were inspired by. For example, Betty G. Miller, from the first 9 artists of the DeVia movement. So we selected her. We selected Goya from the 1800s. So that's another example. We also had an animal challenge. And different animals can mean different things. For example, bees. Bees can represent deaf people. So can butterflies. That's another example. A cow can represent
Moloch.
Moloch. Which is like A.G. Bell.
Just leave it.
Okay, thank you. The hashtag Certists make art, not war. A lot of activism and artivism surrounded this hashtag. We had a self-portrait challenge, and that one was interesting as well. The Inauguration Day challenge didn't happen. We brought it up, we asked if there was any community interest, and there were crickets. No one ended up doing this challenge. We also had a Day of the Dead challenge, and the same sort of thing occurred. We put out the call to action, and only one person made a piece. And that person is David Call. Are they here? Is David here?
No, he'll be on the way.
Okay, but he was the sole artist that created a piece for that challenge.
Can I add? So on the Day of the Dead, I think somebody posted something related to the deaf community. We know that that is a Latino holiday that honors family, and we decided not to take that theme on because we didn't want to appropriate that and use that in ways that it shouldn't be. Now, it is very important, of course, to honor that culture and to not make that, misuse that in any way. So that was really kind of what happened with that.
Yeah, and the one person that made an art piece probably didn't see our note about that. By the time we had taken it down, somebody had made a piece already. Now we're thinking about the next challenge and the future. We might actually borrow something from the Daily Moth, that news site. That's one idea.
Is it okay to ask a question now, or should I perhaps wait? There's something on this slide I have a question about. So for the Inauguration Day challenge, you said no one responded to that. Was that for President Trump's inauguration? Can you tell me more about why no one took that up? Was that specifically President Trump's inauguration? Okay, yeah, that wasn't sure. We weren't sure exactly what you were talking about with it as vague as it was. So it could mean perhaps a different inauguration, perhaps one celebrating maybe a female president or president of Gallaudet. So that idea of inauguration perhaps could be switched to not just mean Trump.
I like that idea. Yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Now, I'd like to explain a little bit about the different DeVia categories. DeVia is an acronym that stands for Deaf View Image Art. It's art made about the deaf experience. There's 3 categories under the DeVia umbrella: affirmation art and resistance art. But you can also see that resistance transformed to affirmation becomes its own category, liberation art. This is a piece of resistance, and this is a piece of affirmation. If you're interested in learning more about the different DeVia themes, here is a good example, and there's some links to this page as well. All of the different themes that are under affirmation and resistance. It's available online, and if you're interested, you can definitely check out this website. So as you can see in this diagram, we've got the categories: resistance, affirmation, liberation. Underneath, we have example of themes within those categories. So under resistance, mainstreaming, and under affirmation, collectivism. Below those, we have examples of motifs further within those categories. So you have a basic understanding of how the DeVia challenge works and the rules that we employ. Do you have any questions about this?
So DeVia, is it specifically about the deaf experience, or is it also incorporating other disenfranchised groups? Let me clarify. So DeVia has these various categories. So you're saying that DeVia has categories, and I understand that. And you're also talking about the idea of culture. We know that various cultures have the idea of pushing back against the larger dominant culture. Does DeVia also reflect that?
Definitely. That's a great question. Thank you for raising that. Yes. DeVia incorporates everything. It incorporates all sorts of intersectional identities. It can be the LGBT community, specific religions, the Jewish community, for example. The DeVia Central Challenge is broad in that way. It incorporates all sorts of different identities. This one is an example from February 2015, day 7. The motif was a lock, and you can see different artist renditions of this theme. Do you want to talk a little bit about this piece? No.
No, not really.
Okay, well, you can see here using the lock to represent oralism. And it was her idea of using a door lock quite intuitively and creatively to create this piece.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say no, not really. It sounds so snarky.
This piece is entitled Me
So
as
this
a
is
Small
called
D.
Me as a Small D. It's kind of explaining my experience as a child growing up in an oralist background. I kind of felt like I was being locked, or that others were locking me in, parts of me in, because I so much focus on the mouth and the ear. So we can see that there is the lock that connects the mouth and the ear, and it also reflects the way that the sign for deaf looks. We also see that I've used buttons to show my eyes, which is showing kind of a deadness, a lack of vitality. We also know that idea of deaf children being shown as, or treated as, pets almost, and we can see the irony of the crown here. My hands are spelling deaf. You can see those here.
But
they almost look like an X-ray, though. That deaf being spelled out, it's not really there. It's transparent. It's not being fully fleshed out artistically or in this piece in the way that my hands would actually look.
Thank you. All right, this example is from February 2016, day 15, and the motif was a wind-up key. It's really amazing to see all of the artists' different renditions. This was February 2017, day 25, Octopus motif. This media is paper cutting, and on the left it's pencil and paper. What I think is interesting is there's lots of different materials used for the DeVia challenge. It doesn't have to be the traditional paint and canvas. There's photography included, poetry, all sorts of different ways to express yourself within this challenge. Two-day ASL. This was part of that challenge. This was a lino cut.
Mm-hmm.
This was the 3-day Deaf History Challenge. This was actually created by a deaf-blind artist from France, Arnaud Ballard. This is the silverware motif, the kitchen theme in 2017.
So the artist here on the left, Takia Harris, is a Black deaf artist, and she does a lot of her work focusing on history. This is showing the story of a family who lived on a farm with hearing parents.
Father who was hearing.
A father who was hearing and mother who was deaf.
And she had quintuplets.
And this mother had 5 children, quintuplets. The doctor decided to name the children himself rather than allowing the deaf mother to name the children herself. They thought, oh, mother can't speak. She has absolutely no place. She can't name her own children. I'm going to name them for her. We see milk cans back here.
Because they gave the children
Because they gave the children pet milk. It was made not for children, but that's what they decided to give to these children.
Because they confiscated the children.
They confiscated the children. They dressed them up, took pictures of them, used them for ads, for the milk. So I didn't know about this until Takia Harris created work about it. 4 of these children ended up passing away from breast cancer, unfortunately. Only 1 is still living. So that's the story that this piece tells here on the left.
And they might have died because of implications of the breast milk.
It's possible that the cancer that caused the end of their lives could be tied back to that milk that they were given.
Yeah, great.
These pieces are under the Vedet's Day challenge. Karen Christie created this piece on the left out of fabric. She actually printed photos on fabric and was very creative in creating this piece. It's beautiful. There's an old picture of Vedet's and his wife, Bessie. At that time, they lived in Colorado Springs. And they show the picture of them with their hands behind their back.
Right, both of them. Kind of a weird picture, right?
And so looking at that picture, you have to think there's some hidden reason. There's some reason behind them doing that?
Yeah, I've always wondered, why would they have their hands behind their backs? You know, I don't think that vets would have done this without any sort of reason. They must have come up with some sort of meaning with that when they had the picture taken. What are they doing behind their backs? I decided to take this idea and show them holding the deaf flag. I decided that that's what you can see right here.
The new sign. Union.
There's a new sign.
Union flag.
The Union flag, we can see that there with the turquoise stripes. Has anyone not seen that? Everyone can see me okay? Oh, okay. So see that both of them have their hands behind their backs, but they're holding them in different ways. So there's a man on the left, and then, yep, this was for a photograph. So I've kind of flipped the photo in my mind to show where the people are. So in the actual photograph, they're facing the front. The camera can see their faces. But I've taken that conception and I've flipped it around so I can imagine what's going on behind. So they're not actually like this in the photograph, but I've kind of imagined what they could be doing behind their backs.
I see. I was wondering about
Yeah, you can
that.
see actually the flag right back here, the one that I've recreated in the painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've taken that idea and put it back here. So maybe it was polite at that time to hold your hand behind your back. I don't know, but there was certainly something going on.
Left hand or right hand?
Yep, it looks like, yep, they're holding their left hands behind their backs. So maybe there's the idea of the left hand being evil and they want to hide their left hand in the photographs. That's something that people thought back then. The right hand was moral, left hand immoral, so hiding that left hand behind their backs. Oh, so there might be some symbolism with that. Okay.
This piece, adding flowers, Vedet's in his backyard was known for growing flowers, and so that's why it's around the border.
Okay, so this is work with the hashtag Artivism makes art, not war. This is a really powerful idea and powerful artwork came out of it. Trying to remember how many artists were involved with this effort. Now there weren't many, but their work was incredibly powerful. Really, every artist brought something really strong to this challenge, to this hashtag. So this is the inspirational challenge. This is Morris Broderson. So what the artist had to do was look at various artworks from an artist, take an idea from them, and then change it or make it their own. This is Morris's work here on the left, and then the artist's creation of the idea that she got from Morris Broderson's work on the right, on the left. Morris on the right, artist's work on the left. Same thing over here. We see Morris's work on the right with the beam coming through the ear, and then the face and the more portrait look over on the left. Oh, this one right here is the self-portrait challenge. This is the clock motif. I believe Eric is here with us today. He's on his phone. Looks like he might be on his phone and not noticing. So we have many videos of his work. Eric's saying, oh, hi, whoops. So we have another video over here of work. Just some really wonderful videos that have been a part of the challenge, and we do have one of Eric's in the glass gallery. All right, here was that piece right here.
David Call is white, but he's a teacher at the California School for the Deaf. He's a very talented artist. De Estrella, that's actually a famous deaf teacher at CSD a long time ago. He taught photography and he was Mexican. So this piece was in tribute to that individual. A long time ago, film was used with glass plates, and they would have different shows to teach children about traveling the world with this older technology.
Sure, there's the magic lantern man here. So if you would like to know any more information, you can go to this website. We also have information about a curriculum that we've developed. It's really the place to go to if you want to know anything more about the motifs, the deep meanings behind them. If you'd like to look at works that have been a part of the many years that the challenge has been going on, this is where to go. If you want to know more about the Artivists United organization, here's a blog that you're more than welcome to visit.
Do you want to show, maybe talk a little bit about this symbol of the hand with the paintbrush?
Yeah, does anyone have any ideas why this hand might be used to show DeVia art? Oh, here's one.
Sure, the missing sense, you know, the 5 senses. You've got 4 fingers up showing you're missing 1 sense.
That's right. That indicates one way of indicating deaf. And we have the paintbrush representing art.
Who did that piece?
This is a David Call piece right here.
Wow, it's just beautiful.
Yes. And that's the logo we use for our DeVia curriculum.
David should come soon. He's actually teaching a linocut class. Oh, he just arrived. What timing? It's the tall guy with the glasses. His artwork, I mean, he's an artist. He created work all day. He's been teaching, and now he's here with us tonight. He's just a prolific artist, and we're happy to have him.
So if any of you and your interest has been piqued and you'd like to join us, you can. Or maybe just for a couple of days if you don't think you're up to the whole 28 days. I know we're all busy. You could also just do work on the weekends if that would work for you. Now there's a paper that we'll be able to share with you that you'll be able to read more about the motifs if you would like to. We also have an art activity for all of us to get a little hands-on experience with this today. Okay, thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
I do have a question. I wanted to go back to the hand with the eye, with the finger down and the paintbrush. What made you pick that idea, that theme?
Really, this hand shape, this idea is from the Nepalese sign meaning deaf. So we took a sign from another country, felt like it worked great for us, and incorporated it.
Yeah, it doesn't quite look right, you know, if you have one finger down, I guess, you know, picking the right finger, this one's most comfortable, the ring finger. And then at the base of the hand, is that a lamp?
Yes, the lamp signifies education. It's the curriculum. We go to deaf schools, we teach about DeVia and various artists, so the lamp is indicating that curriculum and the idea of education.
Wow, that's great.
And here's David Call right over here.
I just arrived from Rochester School for the Deaf. I was painting all day, but I'm glad to be here. Thank Thank you so much to Nancy Rourke. Can you imagine how much work and thought has gone into the DeVia Challenge, the Facebook page, organizing the whole calendar? She's not paid one bit for this. This is out of the heart and soul of Nancy Rourke. She works as a full-time artist, which is an incredible feat, traveling the country and the world, and the idea that she makes time to do this community event is incredible. She wanted to create the calendar ahead of time to get that out so that artists could think about and research this stuff. She had to do all of this way early, and so now you have no excuse, artists in the audience. For Nancy, you have a pass, but everybody else, I hope you have your paintbrushes ready and are ready to join in for this challenge. Behind us is the exhibit, thanks to Tabitha and the Dyer Art Center for hosting this. It's very exciting, the first one ever. And also the various assistants that have helped with this exhibit, all of the artists that created these pieces. They have been screened. We selected some of the best pieces. That, remember, Nancy mentioned there were over 600 one of the first years, then 800, and it's getting up to the thousands now, and I really hope that the next iterations of this challenge will continue to grow and grow. Now I'd like the artists who are here to come up and explain a little bit about their artwork, about who they are as artists. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the artist and ask them more about their work, because it is on display in the glass gallery behind us. When the artists come up, please say your name sign, where you're from, and why you joined the DeVia community, the Facebook group, but also why you decided to submit your piece for this exhibit.
So I have just come from doing printmaking all day at RSD, and here I am. So I need to explain what now?
Your name sign, where you're from.
Okay. Hello, I'm David Call.
I teach visual art.
I teach visual art at the California School for the Deaf in the Fremont area. Oh, hello there. Hi.
Hey.
I've been working there for the past 30 years. I've been involved with the DeVia Facebook challenge for many years. I like the idea of the prompt, trying to think of how I can meet that with a work of art. This is a maze motif work that I've done. It kind of represents my life. It's the idea of navigating throughout life to become who I am. I've gone through the experience of being a deaf child in a family without all deaf children, growing up through that. This is the idea of my life here. So we see various parts of my life. I have that monkey idea, you know, when you go to the audiologist and you see that monkey up there on the shelf. I'm sure many of us have had that experience. So that's here. Who's kicking? The idea of not being able to communicate. The idea of making loud noises, people being able to hear them and not wanting to hear them. The idea of deafness being a sickness or an illness, something to be changed.
Like a dummy.
There's the idea of feeling like a dummy, feeling like there are certain things that are not to be kept, that should be thrown away. My fingers being constrained, tied up, not being allowed to sign.
Being punished for signing.
Being punished for signing, being in a place where everyone else is speaking and I'm not even allowed to communicate, that idea of oralism. The bullying that I've gone through.
Being a jester.
Being a jester, feeling like I need to entertain people, not treating me as a full person. Testing. Being in a test tube, being a subject. There's 12 holes that you hear in there, or that you see up there. The 12 people who have died due to cochlear implantation. We see arrows going into the birdhouse, and we know that birds can represent the deaf community. There's that idea of dark blue coming in there. It's more punishment over here. Being caught out by someone on duty, being punished for doing things that were natural to me but were unallowed.
Medically focusing on my ear, but not any other part of my body.
Having the experience of people focus on my ear, no other part of my body.
Thinking that only because I'm human, you know, and the medical community was so focused on my ear, they forgot that I was a person too.
Here's a stage on the left. Mother crying. I wasn't able to hear it, of course.
But a mom grieving because
But
her child is
my mother grieving because her child was deaf. So you know those babies that if you pull the string in the back, they say, "Mom, mom, mom"? I have that idea over here.
guillotine.
There's the idea of a guillotine as well, having hands cut off. And there's a butterfly to represent deafhood.
Brought as a specimen.
The idea of the butterfly being captured, caught, put into a specimen board. So this is my maze, all happening inside of me. If you want to see it a little bit closer, it's right back there in the gallery. Thank you.
That's a lot of stuff. Yep. This one too. Hi everybody. My name is Karen Christie. This is my name sign. I am from Rochester, New York. I joined the DeVia Challenge because, you know, the month of February, what that looks like in Rochester, you guys are all familiar. Mountains of snow. I did not look forward to it. So the idea of something bright in the month of February in this DeVia Challenge got me motivated. You know, it kept me warm all during the month of February in my studio working on art. It was a wonderful experience. Also, in 2017, I felt like it was more open. You know, in the past, the challenge still existed, and there were lots of very talented artists who were working in the medium of paint, and I felt like I was really just not talented in that sense. But if everybody else was opening up and doing different media, I felt like my expertise, fabric, I could add something to the discussion. So I added a patch every day for the 30 days. I used fabric and then cut out different pieces and used glue. I didn't sew because it's time consuming and that wasn't really my focus, but I did create a piece. Sometimes I would cheat. I admit I'd do 2 motifs or 2 days worth of work in one day, but I did complete them all. My goal was to create all of them, and then maybe amongst different challenges, I would sew them all together, and that's what I ended up doing. But each of the different patches, to incorporate them in a piece that had the right composition was a challenge for me too. I didn't necessarily want to put them in order of the month, but I wanted it to tell a story, to be part of a journey. At the beginning, the lower end of the piece, you see the motif of a nest. So you see the tree and the little eggs in the nest. And you can see ASD in the nest, which was really my beginning of the community here. And the beginning of the deaf community here in America, the American School for the Deaf. This is a dog. And the dog's face is A.G. Bell's face, drooling, because the motif was Bell. You know, think about a dog and the Pavlovian response, that experiment when you ring the bell, the dinner bell, the dog drools, that same concept with A.G. Bell. I tried to follow the affirmation and resistance motifs she really had some sort of intuitive plan for all of these, because for me, when I went through this and tried to create a pattern or a story with all of these patches, a journey really did come together. You can see the zipper on the mouth representing oralism and being taught to speak. You can see the fish motif, which is popular as well. All of this journey that goes to the end, the mother of all deaf souls, Ayeth, all of us living there together. And that brings us back to the bottom patch, and the journey starts over again. And so I created this piece with all of these different patches, but I didn't know what to do with the back of it, and I added Arnaud Ballard's Deaf Union flag to the back, and that's my piece.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Edwards. I have two name signs. One looks like Rose, the other one I'm not going to share. So I'm a photographer. So I met Nancy in the Ravenswood Art Club in the Chicago area. So I met her there originally, and she explained the challenge, and I decided to join. Now, I'm a photographer, but I decided to try my attempt at other media. So this was a motif of musical notes. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. But I'm deaf. I mean, I don't care anything about music. I have children who are hearing, and they're all about it, and I can hear the vibrations, but I'm like, whatever. If you're mad at me, turn up the music. I know you're upset just from feeling it, but that's you. Not really my thing.
My son's hearing.
So my son is hearing really loud. I remember he used to play the guitar, and other people tried to take care of that part of his life. But I was thinking about the idea of the motif. My son's 22 now, so I decided, you know, why don't you play? So he played, and I thought about what I was feeling and what music would really look like to me, and this is what I came up with. Now think about music, and my art, for me, is really my music, and this is just one more piece in that collection.
Yeah. You got it. That was it. Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Cohen Efron. This is my sign name. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I work as a school psychologist and a counselor. I worked in that field for 25 years, and that field is all about the stories of children, and all of their stories really became a part of mine. I used to write a blog, and that really had my name attached to it. You know, I was professionally recognized and chastised on that platform. Now, the vlog, I also had a similar experience, you know. People wanted to make sure that I was still professional, and I remained professional even in my personal life. Now, for art, my name isn't the focus of that piece. You guys interpret the piece. I guess my name is signed at the bottom, but that was a way for me to express myself. This piece is entitled Dirty Little Secret. Back at the School for the Deaf, really, there was a lot of neglect that happened, whether it was budget cuts or other neglect. People were hired without a thorough background check, whether they had, you know, some sort of issue in their past, criminal or whatnot, especially sexual misconduct. Nobody was screened before they worked at the School for the Deaf. Now, in the School for the Deaf that I experienced, they had communal bathrooms. The school was poor. They didn't have a lot of money for nice bathroom doors. They had barely a curtain to give privacy. You can see the short figure is a child, and peeking around the corner, another figure. You can see blood on the floor. I know the color is tough on this monitor. There was a lot of rape that happened at the School for the Deaf. That story has been told to me over and over again. I've reported it over and over again from these children whose stories that I've met in my professional life. And even when I talk to deaf adults, they echo the same story. They say, this happened to me too. And I really want to thank Nancy Rourke and Patty Durr to give me the opportunity to express this, to keep my mind going. Art is important. It's important to express these stories and to tell the truth. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Epstein. I'm a fifth-year RIT student. So I didn't know anything about the DeVia Challenge until someone from a camp that I used to go to let me know about it. Some of you might know about Ian Sanborn. You saw his TikTok, that video that he made. And it reminded me of one of the first ASL stories that I heard, or that I saw rather, about like a little caterpillar. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking about Ian Sanborn's work. And for the first week, I made a few poems, and then I have to admit, I did not continue to post every day. This one is called Scroll Writer, and it's in honoring George Beddoes.
Opening the Torah.
The idea of opening the Torah and having it be a place where things that are cherished and are sacred are being saved. So this is one of the things that I've done.
I also have a YouTube video that goes into all of the different aspects of this poem. You can see that online. Hi, everybody. I'm Lori. I'm from Rochester. The medium that I chose is watercolor. I was inspired by a piece by Morris Broderson. I don't know if you can see it, it's sort of small on this monitor, but it's a person leaning over to listen to see if there's a sound coming from this flower. I think it's a tulip that's depicted here. And I really like that concept a lot, and I decided to borrow it and incorporate it here. This person could be male or female, but they've got the old-fashioned hearing aids. That's what I experienced when I was a kid, that system with the body loop and everything. So I was thinking about that. This flower is actually called the Bella flower. It's in the shape, the flowers are in the shape of bells. And when I saw that, I felt like it had a deeper meaning. You know, the flowers were shaped like bells. And I have this figure here wondering about that flower. You know, it's called bell. The flowers are in the shape of bells. Do they make a sound too? So that's my piece. Thanks.
Hello. I'm Bob Rourke. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. This right over here is Nancy, my beautiful wife. Rather, my sister-in-law. So we've known each other for a long time. I've seen her artwork change and evolve over the years. So she has this challenge, and in 2016, I decided I should go ahead and do it. She'd been on me for a while to do that. And it was difficult because I had a full-time job. I'd been working there, working in Colorado for the federal government for many years, and decided to get a little bit more artistic and join the challenge in 2016. So last year was a 200th anniversary of ASL, and that was one of the themes that we had that year. This is called LSF MVSL Rock Boat Art. French Sign Language, mixing with Martha's Vineyard Sign Language, and that idea is here in this art. We know that when Laurent Claire came over on the boat and brought French Sign Language and it became in contact with Martha's Vineyard, that's where it all started. So this was rock art, that was the motif. This is kind of touching on that idea of the older cave paintings and what those look like.
I used sponges and acrylic art, and I had to practice before I made my final piece. I had several sketches at first, and finally I made it work because the sponges were a new medium for me. You can see this figure over here waving. This figure is signing deaf. And you can see they're all on this boat, which is made of hands. There's a wooden box actually made by another deaf man who's created several different wooden boxes, who lives in the same area as I do. Tony Heller, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. I graduated from Gallaudet. He made, I think, over 1,000 different boxes. They're really intricate, beautiful pieces, and he actually gave me that, and so I wanted to incorporate this in this piece as well. Did you have a question?
So did you graduate from here? Oh,
I graduated from Gallaudet.
That looks like one of the dorms.
Oh, cool.
That's where all the deaf students are, so that's actually kind of perfect that that shape is there.
Cool, all right. Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Rourke. This is my sign name. I'm from Colorado. This challenge was related to deaf history. There was no motif, just deaf history was the theme. And so I chose misrepresentation. I was actually in France, in Paris, this past summer, and I had the opportunity to see this real painting in person, and it's quite large. They had a tour, and the tour guide was explaining the piece. I entered this large room with these incredible but very big paintings hung on the wall. The tour guide let us in, and this caught my eye. I recognized it immediately. And the tour guide said, "Did you actually know that all the paintings in this room are actually made by deaf artists?" And I said, "No, that's not the case. This is not made by a deaf artist. This is actually a hearing artist," which caught the tour guide off guard a little bit. And he said, "Well, no, he had a deaf daughter." Mm-hmm. He was mistaken, because Sicard was really good friends with this painter who was hearing. Sicard said he wanted to change this famous quote. This is Passeur, and he has this famous quote. "Gratitude is the remembrance of the heart." You can see that in yellow. That's his quote. Mm-hmm. But Sicard told the artist, you know, "You should use my quote instead." Mm-hmm. And you can see that on the top here. And he actually didn't know. Now, Laurent Clerc was a student at that time, his student, and was learning from his professor in this scene. Sicard really was supporting oralism. You can see that here and how he's teaching this young girl how to speak. Mm-hmm. Like the boy in this painting, the hearing artist painted this other piece, as you can see here with this boy. The deaf student in the classroom saw the picture of the boy and got very upset because it was a hearing boy in this class, not a deaf boy, and took offense to that. You know, I don't want that boy in the painting because he's hearing. I want him out of the picture, but that actually never happened. So my idea was to actually just cut off his head, but still have his body in the frame. And I support Passeur and his quote instead.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Sandy. I'm from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. I grew up making art. My parents, who were both deaf, gave me all kinds of art supplies when I was young. I realized, though, when I was older, that you can't really make a good life as an artist, and I later on had 2 kids. My eldest went through a lot of experience with depression and difficult times like that. You did? She went to therapy. I thought about that as well. I met with my friend Jennifer Witteborg. She was visiting me, and we were talking about this idea. She suggested art, so I started doing that. My husband, Stephen, was doing some research at the time with Dummy Hoy, and they were thinking about making a movie the following March. So they had purchased a painting from Nancy about Dummy Hoy, and they were talking about that and the concept of DeVia. And then Nancy came to do some volunteer teaching at the School for the Deaf there, and I just started to learn more and more, and I really became very interested in pursuing this line of work, and it really just swept me away. I did this for the challenge last year in February. It was a brick motif. It was a resistance theme. I was really thinking about what I could do to bring this idea to light. I grew up in a more oral situation in St. Louis. Now, both of my parents were deaf, and all of my friends who were also deaf would just love to come and talk with my parents. I told my parents not to sign at school, though, at the School for the Deaf there. I started getting involved with the Deaf Club and organizations and sports. After I was done at that school, I was mainstreamed in high school. I went to an alumni event after that point. This was in 1981, and I met some individuals there. And a little bit later, someone said, "Oh, do you go to the Deaf Club?" And I said, "No, not so much anymore." And they said, "Oh, you should come." All of these ideas are kind of represented here in this work. You see the hands, and I've cut out a space in the bricks, showing the hands kind of looking in. There's the idea of the Deaf Club being shown through there. Deaf clubs, events, I had so many pictures from all the experiences that I'd had, and they're kind of montaged here in this space between the hands. The hands represent some of the friends that I had back when I was younger, kind of looking through this space in the wall, looking at the things that they would like to be a part of. I'm not sure if they grew up to ever become socialized in the adult deaf world or not. Hopefully they have. I have a lot to thank for my parents being very supportive of me. I have to thank Elizabeth Williams as another inspiration. So I also have to thank the therapist and my friend Jennifer Witteborg, who really were very instrumental in pushing me and helping me become the artist I am today.
Okay, so like she mentioned, we have a website with many different examples of pictures of the art that people created for this challenge. The DeVia Central Facebook page, I'll see you guys there. I hope you guys try to do 1 or 2, 4 or 5, you know, try to complete some aspect of the challenge. One year, my husband was saying, you know, in February, I feel like I'm gonna become a widower because you are truly in love with your art and that's your only focus during the month of February. I do try, just like Nancy, to finish
every piece by midnight of that day. I try to keep myself going with that, but it's hard. It is a real challenge. So the February challenge, we have papers over there with the full calendar, all the different motifs. You can start early if you want. I encourage that, really. Think about one word like target, for example, or robot, or a beehive. Think about what that means to you and share ideas. We'll have a reception. Don't be shy, give it a chance. We actually have an art activity. Don't be afraid to get messy. We're going to do that in a little bit. We want to make a big banner, actually, with handprints. And so everyone's handprints creating this larger mural. This is actually an old banner that we made, but I'm hoping that your handprints on this piece will actually bring to the Deaf Club tomorrow, and we'll be teaching a painting event there. We're actually going to be replicating this piece, the ASL Champ piece. It's $30 if you're interested. You can learn from the master, Nancy Rourke herself. But we'll take a little bit of a break right now. We've got the reception, but also we're going to be completing this mural, and you can see that as well. Hopefully we'll be able to create something even cooler this year. The flyer for tomorrow's event. We have a few openings left. You can send the money through PayPal. I think that's everything. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you.